Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Jewel here, and once again I am back for the likes of the Mixie Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of WarioWare D.I.Y, or simply called WarioWare Do-It-Yourself, for specifically for the Nintendo DS. So, yesterday, we did somehow manage able to went into the final stage in terms of the forms of D.I.Y shop by experiencing the 9-volt stage, and that was actually a pretty awesome stage to me. Not only for the fact that we actually did unlock every single micro games on his stage, it really involves in a singular run, by the way, which is very top notch, considering about the fact that after all, speaking of the forms of those micro games though, we also did manage able to access to 2 different stages in particular, which involves around Shuffle, and in addition to Ultra Hard as well. In addition to that, we also did manage able to show off the mirror mode variation of Mix All mode, which means about the fact that every single micro games has been completely flipped. So yeah, that's as far as I can try to able to describe about this basically. So yeah, today for this video is that, suffice to say though, this is going to be the last video for the DS version of WarioWare D.I.Y before we head over to the WiiWare counterpart D.I.Y showcase, because truth be told though, is about the fact I'm probably not going to go through every single aspects in terms of the forms of some editing skills as far as, you know, making micro games from scratch is concerned. I mean, mind you though, about the fact I just want to able to actually get this portion done before you're able to actually move on to the next counterpart in regards to the forms of WarioWare D.I.Y, which, like I said before, showcase we're about to be showing off during at some point until roughly until next month, or to be more specifically though, until next week, at least as far as we do realize, because as far as I'm aware, that obviously if you couldn't tell is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 29th of June today. In some cases, it's 2025 today. So, relatively speaking, though, only 2 more days to go until not only does June is about to conclude, but also about the fact that the first half of 2025 is also going to be concluding. And on top of all that stuff, though, making our way to not only in July, but as well as the forms of the second half of 2025. So, I don't suppose if you noticed already, but I wouldn't guarantee for a fact that as far as news updates, as far as this is concerned, that I really don't think it's going to be possible to able to actually see the Nintendo Direct for this month in June. So something tells me about the fact that maybe we'll hear more about it, probably at some point until July, just because, after all, that we've already got ourselves Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct since in around a couple of days back. So it makes it a little bit more obvious about the fact that they're just trying to go for, like, you know, one particular game-focused direct at a time, just in case about the fact that the hype is about to build up, or anything else like that. So as you can see on the forms of in a D.I.Y showcase, or D.I.Y shop, because as you can tell, that usually relatively speaking though, not only about the fact that we can able to check out some comics, but in addition to music, as well as the forms of the rankings board, as you can tell. But of course, there's nothing right to home about, so I'm pretty sure we are basically done every aspect in terms of D.I.Y shop. Let's go ahead and focusing on the next room, which appears to be D.I.Y Studio, which this means is about the fact it's almost like a my data kind of scenario. Like, as you can see on screen, oh, I did not notice there's actually an achievement system in this game, which, truth be told though, there's like plentiful of achievements you can do, and I'm afraid to tell you is about the fact that it sadly is not possible nowadays in regards to the forms of trying to 100% everything in terms of this particular game in general, because as you can tell, there are some achievements that are self-explanatory, like for instance though, trying to go into the actual D.I.Y shop for the first time. In addition to that, getting several amount of points depending on what stage you're in, and on top of all that stuff though, there's also some other achievements where basically though is about the fact that it does require you to be able to utilize the online functionality, which means unfortunately though, some of those achievements are not accessible anymore, just because, as I've already explained about this before, that the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, in addition to the service of this entire Nin soft, as far as I'm aware, for the actual downloading several of micro games anywhere around the world, it sadly is not possible because, you know, Wi-Fi connection shuts down since in 2014, which is roughly about 11 years ago at this point. So, For now on though, let's focusing on the final thing we want to show off, and that's what appears to be the WarioWare Incorporated, which obviously though has been hosted by not only Wario, but in addition to that, something tells me about the fact that if we go into, well, let's just say the forms of the left door, that we might able to come across into someone feels a bit more familiar to you. Ever since in the intro cutscene, despite the fact that she does make her cameo appearance at first, but also Penny was there, which means about the fact that both Wario and Penny are actually the hosts of the forms of this whole entire game, at least to be more specifically one of those modes in particular, where basically though in WarioWare Incorporated, as far as the actual mode applies, basically though you can able to actually try to do all sorts of stuff here and there. Like for instance though, we can able to try to make those micro games from scratch if you decide able to go for that stuff. Like for instance though, we have to go from step by step basically. But I'm afraid to tell you for this point, guys, is about the fact that, like I said before, the hardest part about for me sometimes, in regards to the forms of trying to make your very own, not only micro games for the sake of the forms of this game in particular, but as well as custom-made stages for the sake of not only Super Mario Maker, both on the Wii U and the 3DS versions especially, but as also with the forms of Super Mario Maker 2 sometimes, is about the fact I'm not exactly a huge expertise when it comes to likely trying to make their own custom-made stuff when it comes to the forms of not only, you know, stages themselves, but in addition to micro games here and there. I mean, sure, no matter what though, it's about the fact that at this point in time, that unlike the forms of how it does on the WiiWare counterpart, there's actually lesser amounts of modes compared to the forms of how it does on the DS counterparts, which you know what I mean if we dive into WarioWare D.I.Y showcase until next week. So because of that, yeah, nothing else I could really say, apart from the fact that, well, at this point in time, I was originally trying to mention something related to the fact that, well, I was potentially trying to mention about the forms of that particular, a new update, in terms of the forms of, well, for instance though, with the highest grossing films of 2025. But let's face it though, it's about the fact that by that time until tomorrow comes, hopefully that's some toys else we're able to mention about this particular subject until tomorrow, just before we dive into the second half of 2025. And like we've already established that before, that it wasn't until specifically though, on the 1st of July all the way up to the 3rd of July, there won't be any uploading schedules for a little bit, especially because, gee, no wonder why the uploading schedules for 2025 to me though just feels a bit all over the place, except the fact that the biggest difference is this time, frankly, it's nothing to do with the forms of that stupid illness or anything else like that. So instead, about the fact that, as you probably already expect, that I believe that Maxi has already on about that since in his conclusion of Paper Mario, which still, no matter what though, is about the fact that we are still finding us to be very unbelievable about the fact that we somehow managed to finally complete, you know, the second RPG Let's Play we've ever done. So, I mean, there's gonna be some plentiful of RPGs left, ranging from, you know, Mario Luigi Superstar Saga for the Game Boy Advance, and in addition to Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, both on the GameCube and the Switch remake, and on top of that, Mario Luigi Partners in Time, and there's also Mario Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, and in addition to, well, I don't really think it's going to be possible for us to able to tackle for the 3DS Mario Luigi games to me though, but that's mainly because no matter what though, we still haven't exactly got the 3DS capture device or anything else like that. So I'm afraid to tell you, those games in particular, Dream Team and Paper Jam are probably gonna miss out, mainly because of the phones that, you know, the lack of 3DS capture device, as long as about the fact that, well, as long as we can able to try to still save it up at some point, but of course that we already spent loads of money at the moment, all thanks to the forms of a whole bunch of Nintendo Switch 2 items, which, to be honest with you, I don't mind it at all. I mean, at first glance, about the fact that I'm almost assuming for the fact that in the rumors category, for the sake of the forms of back then, for the Nintendo Switch successor, that I'm almost assuming for the fact that they're trying to able to actually access to play the 3DS games onto the big screen, but of course that's never happened, mainly because obviously though it's like Switch 1, but with, you know, enhanced graphics and enhanced features and new features to top it off, so which you get the idea for that point. So yeah, as you can see, we now ended up in one of those step-by-step instructions in order to able to make your very own microgames from scratch, which means about the fact, as you can tell, we are demonstrating the forms of the ladybug scenario. So, for instance, though, on this first bit right there, basically though, taking notice from the likes of Mario Paint, basically though, is about the fact that we can able to try to make the actual paint scrubs, or, for that matter though, we somehow create a background and all that stuff in order to able to make it a little bit more fleshed out in terms of the forms of trying to make your very own microgames from scratch. But I'm afraid to tell you, like I said before, I don't really think it's possible for me to able to actually go through every single steps at this point, but I do know for a fact that there's actually technically the third option, which I know for a fact that there's also the forms of, well, it's hard for me to explain personally though, because I've never actually gone into this mode for a very long time, but that's just mainly because still, I'm pretty much more accustomed to able to actually experiencing the actual regular microgames of how the game actually has to offer. Well, to be more specifically, in the Diamond software library. So anyway, yeah, nothing else I can really say about this, I guess. I mean, I would have liked able to give my final thoughts of the DS version of WarioWare D.I.Y, despite the fact that the actual plot is non-existent. I mean, it's just about the fact that no matter what though, what matters the most is about the fact that it is pretty cool about the fact that you can make your very own microgames from scratch, from your personal status, as far as I'm usually considered with this. I mean, yeah, that's as far as I can try to able to describe about this, I guess. I mean, obviously though, the visuals do look very good. Even on the Nintendo DS, it does look pretty fantastic. So, but I will say though, is about the fact that this game is a massive step up from the likes of the forms of how bad WarioWare Snapped was on the DSiWare, just because, well, obviously though, that game heavily utilizes the actual camera built in, not only for the sake of the forms of the front, well, to be more accurate though, in the middle portion of your DSi itself. I mean, nowadays though, with the 3DS, is obviously on the top portion of the top screen, but that's besides the point, despite the fact you have to give yourselves a good lighting in order to able to make this work, which is very awkward to do, and there's not much replayability in the forms of WarioWare Snaps, because that's because of how the fact that there's only quite literally 20 microgames throughout the whole entire game, which is much more lesser compared to the forms of how it does in the rest of the series, including, let's just say, Game & Wario for the Wii U. I mean, am I still trying to give that game a second chance? I mean, I wouldn't guarantee to try to get it straight away though, just because the pricing on that game physically is going pretty ridiculous. We'll have to say for this point right about now, especially considering for the fact that still I'm not a big fan of that game to begin with. I mean, chances are though, if you guys want me to tackle for that game, well, by all means, just let me know in the comments down below if you guys want me to tackle through Game & Wario for the Wii U. I mean, despite the fact that still, I'm not a big fan of the game personally, but that's just because it plays nothing like any other WarioWare games to me, but that's besides the point. So, but as you can tell, we now decided able to actually create the actual animation and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting, all things considered. So basically though, we're about to be making a ladybug, at least as far as we do know, or Francis, if you ever reference the forms of A Bug's Life, but that's besides the point. So, but yeah, for the most part though, there's just simply too much going on at this point, in regards to the forms of trying to make your very own microgames. I know for a fact that I do apologize about the fact that the last part of this particular portion of WarioWare D.I.Y just feels a bit kind of rushed in some scenarios. I mean, because let's face it though, I'm just seriously really looking forward to able to actually replaying through or revisiting WarioWare D.I.Y Showcase for the WiiWare, just because not only for the fact that we can able to experience even more microgames was found on the WiiWare version, but it's also about the fact that I'm afraid to tell you that WarioWare D.I.Y Showcase is now considered as to be lost media. But that's just mainly because, like I've already established that before, the Wii Shop channel is officially closed down since in 2019, unless if you try to able to do some little bit of expertise, like, oh I don't know, trying to do some hacking and what have you, which I'm probably not going to try to do that personally though, just because obviously I still already got the game of course, so, which is pretty lucky on my part, as long as I don't manage to able to trash my old white Wii, because either way though, because that way I can able to simply try to access to not only downloadable virtual console games, but in addition to WarioWare games as well. I mean, mind you, I haven't got that much WarioWare games like I was used to, but that's just mainly because at that point in time that I haven't exactly got figured it out about the forms of access to well, any other games for that matter, and in addition to that, I've pretty much used to download a whole bunch of demos for some WarioWare games back then, but of course the demos is no longer there anymore. To put it simply though, because of how the fact that, you know, the application itself is long gone, so... But I digress. So, and it's also reassuring about this too, about the fact that during my spare own time, in regards to the forms of unfortunately not only going back onto Mario Kart Tour again for unlocking a next playable character, but surprisingly and fortunately, I've managed able to go back on playing through Mario Kart World on my Switch too, of course. And no matter what though, jeez Louise, trying to get the 3-star ranking in a knockout tour is really brutally difficult, even on 150cc class, because I was able to try to practice that on my spare own time, and no matter what though, the only difficult part about it in regards to the forms of trying to able to achieve the 3-star rankings, and basically to do that, you have to simply try to do it perfectly, like no mistakes whatsoever. Like for instance though, you have to go past through every single checkpoint without even going to second or anything, so you always have to be on first place at all times in order to able to do that requirement. I mean, I'm like, oh jeez, that could be very challenging. So, oh yeah, by the way, there's also the job center here now as well. And to put it simply though, is about the fact you can just simply try to make your very own micro games here now as well. But frankly though, you can able to actually do it in the quickest way imaginable by going into that familiar micro game based off from WarioWare Inc. Minigame Mania, where you simply try to jump over for that particular unexpected shark car vehicle, and basically though, this time around though, you can able to actually make this a little bit more customizable, which, and it's also reassuring about this too, yes, everything else is touchscreen instead of button controls this time around, so yeah, I guess that makes a huge difference between both the button controls back in the day, and compared to the forms of how it does it with nowadays, with touchscreen controls for likely for DS, 3DS, Wii U, Nintendo Switch, and now with Nintendo Switch 2, also has touchscreen support as well, just because no matter what though, that it's the power of technology of something unique and all that stuff, and especially noticeable with the forms of iPhone devices as well. So, yeah, once you're done with that, as you can definitely tell, we somehow managed to create our bit of a touch in regards to the forms of one of those DIY games, so straight to the point that the actual DIY game itself is now being added to the shelf. So because of that, yeah, there's nothing right to home about. But there's also the third mode, which appears to be Assembly Dojo, which I have no idea how on earth am I supposed to unlock that. Plus, it's mainly because on my original cartridge version, I simply couldn't able to actually access that mode. In fact, let me know in the comments down below of how you're able to unlock that mode. But I'm pretty sure that particular mode does feature not only young Cricket, but in addition to young or Master Mantis as the hosts. So yeah, that's actually quite interesting. So yeah, I guess there's nothing else you can really say about the forms of WarioWare DIY for the DS version, that is. I mean, it's pretty cool for the most part. I mean, there's nothing else I can really say about it. I mean, if you like WarioWare, you might as able to give this game a shot. Especially noticeable, you might able to try out the forms of some of these micro games on the Diamond software as far as the actual thing itself is concerned. Although you can also, it is still possible for you to able to actually make your very own micro games, likely for its wireless connection for both Wii and DS for download play, but as far as Wi-Fi is concerned, unfortunately though, it is not possible anymore. So yeah, that's besides the point. So would I able to actually recommend WarioWare DIY for the DS? Well, absolutely, yes. Especially noticeable, you can able to do all sorts of stuff here and there, but suffice to say though, I'm afraid to tell you we're gonna have to move on to the WiiWare counterparts, which speaking of which, hope you guys do enjoy this particular portion of this Let's Play of WarioWare DIY so far, and relatively speaking though, is that we might able to end things off here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of WarioWare DIY. As far as the duology of those two games are concerned, we are now about to be showing you guys WarioWare DIY Showcase for the WiiWare. So I'll see you guys until next weekend. Later, fellas.